And now, live from the iAcquire offices in New York City, it's Lunch Break with Michael King.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Lunch Break. We're here with Adam Audette, the Chief Knowledge Officer from RKG. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Good to be here.
Yeah, man. So you're in town for SES, and I couldn't pass up the opportunity to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So how are things?
They're good. A lot of travel, a lot of busyness, but good busyness.
Cool.
Oh, yeah.
Better to be busy than not busy.
Yeah.
Also, we have Devin Asaro, our SEO content strategist. And so let's get into this. I have some questions for you. And I actually read a post that you had written recently, the paradox of new versus old SEO. And you said that old SEO still works best. So can you expand on that and kind of like tell me what you meant by that?
Yeah, it's not that old SEO just works best, but the interesting thing is that there's so many huge changes in the industry and in the stuff that we're doing. Huge changes with like Google Plus and knowledge graph stuff, authorship, and I mean the way that link signals are being counted, the way content's being counted and scored by Google. And Google's doing all this crazy kind of change and innovation, and Bing's kind of trying to play catch up on that stuff. So most of it is dictated by what Google is doing. So all that stuff, it makes it really exciting for what we do because it's always changing, and that's really great. But ironically, a lot of the kind of quote unquote old stuff is still what moves the needle. And what I mean by that is, you still have to write really great content. Content is king, which is annoying to hear, but it's true more than ever, And you need good, relevant links that are, useful for people and can also be useful for search engines. You need like good technical and on-page work, and all that stuff is the same as it was, the last few years. So I really like to watch where things are going and developing and moving because I think it's really important. But at the same time, it's almost at that crux where there's all that new stuff happening, but the old stuff is still influencing things in a great deal. And I know Google wants to get away from like the old, link graph model and PageRank model, but that might take a long time to get to the point where they can be like, okay, social signals now rule the day, and maybe that'll never happen. Maybe they'll just be it'll be a combination, or social will validate, link profile and stuff like that. But anyway, that was kind of where I was going with that. The other thing I think in the SEO industry is that we tend to, and I'm as guilty about this as anyone, is I have like shiny object syndrome. It's like, oh my God, what's that new cool thing? Because I've kind of ADD about stuff.
Right.
And I want to know what that new cool thing is. And then like all my time is focused on that. But really that new cool thing is really good to know and smart to think about. But, let's remember that kind of this more boring best practices stuff is what this company needs, because look at all the low fruit that is here for them,
I definitely agree with that. I wrote a really long post called The New SEO Process. Yep. So I really think that what has changed is what goes into it strategically. Like, I agree with you that, you still need to be making sure that you're hitting all the best practice points. But if you're not taking your audience into account, which SEO typically doesn't do, then I feel like you're kind of behind. Mm-hmm. Like, if you don't know who you're talking to, how are you creating content for these people? Yeah. Otherwise, you're just creating content for the keywords. So I definitely agree with you, but I definitely agree that there is a new normal as well.
Yeah, no, I love that piece that you wrote, and it's spot on. And to me, in the way that I read it, was more of how old SEO, or whatever you want to call it, typical SEO, classic SEO, needs to evolve and become integrated into digital, right, in a bigger way. And one of the things that I want to write about next is that keyword research is dumb, because it's keywords. Like you've got these people that are your target, and they use keywords to search. So let's go after all the keywords that they're searching for. No, let's go after the people that are using the keywords. Yeah, exactly. And I think we're on the same page with that. Is that we got to be thinking as marketers, and that's SEOs are sort of like this nerdy technical developer person that has now had to grow up and be part of digital marketing and online marketing in a bigger way. And the companies that aren't able to do that, I think, are going to be left behind for sure, because that's the way everything's going, you know. And this is also why a lot of digital companies, like the holding companies, the Digitas and Havasas of the world, are really interested in search, because they want it because it's pure, you know, intent, and it's really powerful. But they apply a lot of the really smart marketing that SEO needs to apply, you know, like needs to come from both sides.
We just had to make the decision on our own site redesign to go after a term that just didn't have search, because
it made more sense for the people we were going for. And those are decisions that SEOs typically don't make. They're just like, go for the one with the higher search volumes.
Right.
But if it's not
15,000 difference,
exactly. But it's not just about search. It's about, you know, when a person lands on this site, are they going to have the best experience possible?
That's right. Yeah.
Damn straight. It's funny you bring up the shiny object stuff. So what I want to understand is, like, as chief knowledge officer, isn't that like partially your job? Like you need to understand the new shiny things and how you guys can use them. Like, tell me more about your role.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I would love to. So yes, that title kind of is like lofty, but the whole idea behind it was there's this continuum that I always like to think about. My dad first taught me about this, and I think Google's talked about it before, but it goes data, you know, and then information, and then knowledge, and then wisdom. And I'll never be able to like work professionally in the wisdom area, but if I can be in the knowledge area, that's where I want to live. You know, I want to be able to get, you know, the data and then gather info to inform in a knowledgeable way, you know, stuff that we're doing. So my role is really, you know, thought leadership and writing and conferences and all this stuff, but also trying to, you know, have relationships with the search engines and with sites like Facebook and other important sites out there to understand where they're going, so that we can be there too, you know, like that, you know, try to be ahead of the game in terms of what they're thinking, where they're going. A great example of that is Google Plus. You know, I mean, all of us are talking about that and thinking about that. It's really important for Google, obviously, but why? You know, and think about and how that applies to our client services and how we can do that. So that's a big part of my job is that, and also high-level strategy and, you know, technology development and helping with kind of high-level client services and all that stuff as well.
Cool. So, we were talking before this about link cleanup. It's something that everybody's dealing with right now because everybody was doing very spammy things. Like, we get a lot of calls from prospects like, oh, you know, our content wasn't that good. We might have been doing some pretty, you know, bad things for links. How can we do it right now? Like, what is your experience, not even experience, like, how do you feel about the link cleanup that we're all having to endure right now?
I think endure is a very appropriate word. I could rant about this. I sort of detest the idea of link cleanup. So here's why. So companies, a few years back, companies said, great, we're going to buy paid links. You know, you can make a judgment on buying links and all that stuff that sites did, but it worked, and they were willing to take the risk exposure. It's not about what's right and wrong. It's about how much risk you can take on. So that's fine. Okay, they spent millions of dollars. The SEO industry helped companies spend millions in buying links and manipulating signals. Then Google says, oh, we're going to change the game on that, and pretty much has created a situation now where the link economy's kind of flipped. And instead of paying for links now, companies are paying to clean up the links they already paid for. So it's just ridiculous. And when you go through cleanup, and you might work with a site that has millions and millions of links, you've got to go through all that data. You've got to find the bad links. You've got to contact those sites in some way. You know, how do you do that? When you contact the sites, no one cares. You know, you might get a small percentage that say, okay, we cleaned up the link, and that's maybe 1%. The rest ignore you, except for another very, you know, probably larger percentage than actually clean it up. Say, oh, it's going to cost you $500 per link for me to clean that up. And so now the link economy is totally flipped upside down. And it's just, to me, it's a disaster. And I think, yes, we have to do some link cleanup, and it's our reality, you know, in this world right now. But I'm trying to coach companies to understand that, okay, instead of really focusing all this time and money and resources on cleanup, which is not trivial to do, focus on like getting new good links, you know, because you're taking away links, okay, because they may be hurting you, but companies are also saying we might have a problem with these paid links at some point in the future. Let's clean them up. But you don't have a penalty, and Google hasn't notified you in any way. So what? Yourself. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Instead, focus on get some good quality links. You know.
Absolutely. So we will be right back in about 20-30 seconds. And we're going to talk a little bit more about e-commerce SEO, because from what I understand, this is the king of e-commerce SEO. So we'll be back in a few seconds.
So I'd say we try to make birthdays pretty special around the office. In fact, we have this great tradition of letting the birthday boy or birthday girl actually play DJ for the day.
Hey Norris, happy birthday! Any hints on the big birthday playlist today?
Not really. Kind of keep it simple, a little something for everyone.
Cool.
Wherever you are, I believe that the heart does.
Josh, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? No, I think it's actually Celine Dion.
Overall, I think the tradition works because everyone's really open-minded around here.
And we're back. So, Adam, like I said, you're the king of e-commerce SEO.
I like that.
And from what I understand, you worked at Zappos. Worked at Zappos for quite a time, and as everybody knows, like them and Amazon, I guess that's one company now.
Yeah.
They're like the best at e-commerce SEO. So, what can you tell us about your experience there?
That's a fun experience, number one. So I was working at an agency, and actually the same agency that Marshall was working at back in the day, and Bill Hunt and Adam Shirk and Derek Wheeler and all these other people. But I worked for Marshall. I was one of his link monkeys, and I wasn't in the office. I was living in Northern California, and he didn't really know who I was, except that here was this guy, you know, mysteriously out there, but I was basically his lackey. One of the clients we had at the time, though, was Link Exchange, and that was Tony Hsieh, who's the CEO of Zappos now. That was his company with a guy named Alfred Lin. So they sold that to Microsoft in 2000 or 99 or 2000, and Tony said, "Hey, Adam, do you want to do this email discussion list for this new shoe site that I'm going to be joining?" And that was Zappos. And I said, "Sure, great." And so the email discussion list that we did back then still goes, like still in place. Really old school, you know. I think there's about 300,000 subscribers on it, but that morphed into doing other stuff at Zappos and eventually SEO. And then in doing that SEO there, started consulting with other companies and clients and kind of went from there into the industry. So cut my teeth in e-commerce with Zappos, and then up into the point where Amazon acquired Zappos, and then worked for a little while longer until my company was acquired, and then I had to give up the consulting with Zappos, although we still work with them as an agency. So
that's cool. Yeah, that's cool. So how can e-commerce sites build their SEO strategy and focus on user experience?
Good question. It's a tough one. You know, we had a motto at Zappos, which I've since adopted and use now at RKG, is that, and this was Tony's thing, he said, first we make the best user experience possible, and then just leverage for SEO, maximize SEO. So if you take that just kind of simple premise into everything you do, then it dictates, okay, user experience is the first thing that's most important, because without that, the SEO doesn't really matter, you know. And so the other thing I talk about is how SEO should be invisible. You know, the invisible layer. You should never see it unless you're another SEO like us. You should never go to a site and be like, this looks really SEO. This must be some of this SEO these kids are working with, you know. You should never be so apparent. But Zappos has a culture of very focused on user experience, front end and fast, and make things fast. Customer service is everything and all that. So to be honest, it was easy to do SEO for Zappos because they had amazing brand, customer service. They have this tailwind, you know, that people just link to them because they want to link to them and talk about them, and they have good experiences. So it's one of those things where if that is the company, then SEO is easy. If it's the other way around and you've got a kind of a poor business model, or maybe you don't have great customer service or nothing to differentiate, It's pretty hard to SEO that stuff.
It's just like reputation management. Like you can polish a turd, or you can work with a company that actually is a good company, and then reputation management is incredibly easy.
That's right.
So, yeah, it's funny you said the invisible layer thing. Like I was queuing it up. I was going to say, you said, but no. Okay. From your experience, what across the board do consumers always want from an e-commerce site?
That's a good question. What do they always want? They want a fast site and lots of options right in front of them. So I think a lot of times, and this is one of the tensions in SEO with e-commerce, is that companies like to create advanced landing page or a category page that has a nice image and has a bunch of content and maybe a little bit of product that merchandising teams, say they want there. Right. They dictate what that product is. And all that, which is, it looks great and it is great, but a lot of times what the visitor wants is they want a search result page because they want all the stuff in front of them and they want it really fast and they want to be able to add to cart and shop quickly without a lot of barriers in between what I want and me giving you my credit card. Right. And if you can do that stuff and nail that, you're ahead of the game. It's hard to do though, and I think that a lot of companies, here's one thing that people do, like shipping, for example. Here's this great promotion on Gumps. I don't know, Gumps.com. Like, I never shop at Gumps because it's too expensive. But if I did, my wife sometimes shops there, and she goes to Gumps and she's like, here's this great sale, awesome, add to cart. And then, oh, what's this? Shipping is $25, but you didn't say anything about that. You said it was a 40% discount on, and so but now the site is trying to back in profit on shipping. Right. Visitors are not stupid. Customers are smart and they know what they're doing. And in this day and age of the internet, you've got to really up your game and give more. I mean, customers expect more,
As they should. I mean, in the information age that we're living in, like we're as close to the economic principle of perfect information as you can possibly be. And the thing about competition is that when people don't know like what the price is at another store or whatever, then it's like you kind of it's kind of like monopolistic competition. Right. But when they do know, it really like levels the playing field. And like you're saying, these e-commerce sites or these stores, these brands need to offer more in order to maintain that business.
That's right.
So where would you say is the most viable place or the best tactic, or better yet, strategy for building links for an e-commerce site?
Good question. So it's hard for e-commerce sites, especially if you don't have a lot of strong differentiation. So for Zappos, it's easy to get links because they have amazing customer service, and that's a story. The other thing about Zappos that makes it easy to build links is that they've got Tony Hsieh. He's a big celebrity. He's a rock star. He's doing all kinds of PR. He's writing for sites, and you're getting links that way. When you don't have those opportunities, the thing that I always tell the team to focus on is focus on categories and don't focus on product level stuff. So build all your link strategy around focusing on categories and maybe subcategories and building external links into that stuff. And doing that is, a lot of times it's stuff like, guest posting still can work, although I think it's getting used and abused more today because, the tools at our disposal are less, and when one gets out and people talk about it, then everybody uses it to the point where it becomes useless. Yeah, like infographics, still really useful, but people do them bad, and the bad ones outweigh the good ones.
Yeah, it's funny. So we're actually in the middle of an infographic study, and we were looking at like the quality of infographics versus links, and we found that the worst looking ones actually have 3 times more links than the good looking ones. And it's clear it's because like SEOs are pushing these bad infographics to build links.
Right. Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, and I feel like, if I figured that, I'm sure Google has. Yeah. So something's going to happen soon.
Yeah.
Okay, so what trends do you see for the future of e-commerce, both for consumers and retailers?
So it's interesting because Google's really focused on this idea of same-day shipping and competing with Amazon, they want to do same-day shipping. And they're already, they're getting there. They've got next-day shipping down dialed. Maybe they're already doing same-day in certain cities.
Amazon actually delivers something to me on a Sunday.
Wow.
They have this thing called laser shipping.
Nice.
It's insane.
That's
but
amazing.
Continue, I'm sorry.
So, well, what Google is doing, and this is part of their move to the paid shopping blend too, is they're going to give tools, this is speculation, it's not a fact, but I feel they're going to give tools to merchants to allow them to compete with Amazon on same-day shipping and expedited shipping. And so they're looking at, they've got a whole bunch of stuff focused on that shipping stuff, which I think they're going to put together tool sets that they're going to be part of the shopping blend for Google merchants. So that's one area that is interesting. Future of e-com, I think that if companies aren't strongly differentiated or providing tremendous value, not tremendous, but providing tangible value online, I think they're going to go away. I think we're going to see e-commerce players fall away that are the average players or the subpar players, and I think we'll see a rise of niche players. I think stuff like having a yarn site in crafts, or having really focused niche e-com, I think is a really smart play, and I think will do well. I think the be-alls that are trying to compete with the Amazons or the REIs or the Zappos, I think they've got a tough road ahead of them the way things are going.
I agree with that. So yeah, thanks for coming, Adam. We're gonna wrap up. This has been awesome. I learned a lot. I'm sure the people watching learned a lot. And where should they go to find more stuff from you?
So follow me on Twitter, Audette, Audette, and read our blog. It's not a very good URL, but it's rimm-kaufman.com/blog. Actually, I think it's rkgblog.co.
We'll put it on the screen.
Thanks,
Cool, man. Thanks for coming by.
Yeah.